Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. This webinar is designed for first-year homeschool parents, those perhaps going into their first year of homeschool, those who have had an entire year homeschool moving into their second year of homeschool. And if you're here live, would you introduce yourself? I'd love to hear who you are in the world, where you're generally homeschooling, and who you're homeschooling this year. What brought you to homeschooling? I'd love to hear. If you haven't already met me, I'm Teresa Wiedrick, the certified life coach and homeschool mentor found here on the Homeschool Mom Wellness and Mindset channel on YouTube. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, in my private Patreon group, the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective, and on my website, capturingthecharmedlife.com. If you're looking to book a no-obligation conversation with me to discuss your homeschool mom challenges, you're welcome to do that. You'll find the link down below. Now that I've introduced myself to you, I'd love to hear more about you. Would you share a little bit about yourself in the comments on the side or the Q&A? So this webinar will be about 40 minutes, 20 minutes at the end for Q&A. If you weren't able to attend live, that's okay. You're always welcome to send me a message after the discussion. I'm happy to book a conversation with you. Today, we'll be discussing the 9 steps to becoming a more confident homeschool mom from year 1. But before we get started, I'd like to hear, what is the biggest concern you have for attend this seminar or this webinar today? What has been your biggest concern in your homeschool this past year? This webinar is for you if you're a new homeschool parent leaving conventional or education system, for those experiencing uncertainties or doubts in their homeschool year, for parents needing to navigate certain concerns that they have, specific concerns, families looking to establish a more structured or personalized learning routine, for those who want to build greater confidence in managing family dynamics as they homeschool, parents seeking to answer frequently asked questions around their homeschool choice, for those aiming to create a supportive and burnout-free homeschool environment, for parents overwhelmed by research on homeschooling, or families concerned about social opportunities or socialization, and for anyone wanting to transition smoothly and confidently into homeschooling. So if that's you, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. This is what you'll gain from this webinar. You'll learn how to start homeschooling with confidence, or if you're a first-year homeschooler moving into your second homeschool year, you're going to learn how to overcome those first-year frustrations into more happiness, more confidence. You're going to discover easy-to-use tools and strategies for your next successful year. You're going to connect with other homeschool parents. If you're here live, we're going to have that 20-minute chat at the end of the conversation. You'll move into your second year with greater clarity and an action plan. And you'll gain insights from an experienced homeschool life coach to help you address the most common concerns or challenges. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts, your concerns, your responses in the chat. I will frequently look over to see who's interacting to make sure that I've engaged each of you. Let me know what name I can use to refer to you. Just put that at the beginning of the comment. So this is a dedicated time for you to ask your questions and get personalized answers. Of course, you're always welcome to join me in the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you are here pre-planned and ready to go with your worksheets, the 9 steps to become a confident homeschool mom from year 1, then grab your worksheets and you'll want to answer the questions. This will help you to both get you thinking about the most important things and also get you, considering maybe later I could have a conversation with her about certain things, or I could ask her in email about certain elements that come up, as I'll be sharing a variety of things very quickly. So at the end of today's webinar, I'll share details about a special group coaching program designed specifically for newer homeschool parents. This program is all about building confidence, finding your groove, connecting with a community that really understands your journey. So stick around to the end to learn how you can join me and bolster your confidence all year long. So I want to introduce you to a homeschool mom. Now, she's a composite of many homeschool moms, and I'm going to call her Sarah. Sarah is a popular name in the homeschool community. And so I want to introduce you to a lady named Sarah. She's not a real homeschool mom, but if you identify with her, there's probably a reason, because these are common first-year homeschool challenges. So in her first year of homeschooling, Sarah learned to become a confident homeschool mom by following 9 practical steps. She equipped herself with knowledge about homeschool laws. She built a support network with other homeschool families. She developed a flexible routine that included both her homeschool life, but also her personal life, and sometimes not specific to Sarah, but many homeschool moms also have a work life. Sarah clarified her family's core values. She created a vision statement for this year. She learned to practice self-awareness strategies to manage her frustrations and learned to lean in to child-inspired learning. Sarah also planned for changes in family dynamics, so also to set realistic expectations and adopt a growth mindset to overcome her uncertainties. Through these steps, she became a more competent and fulfilled homeschool mom. That's why I'm offering coaching to help you become more confident from year 1. Something that would have been hugely beneficial for me and wasn't even available at the time. I don't recall anyone being a coach in this realm at the time, nor was, I think Facebook existed. Instagram did not. So if I were to back up a couple decades, I would be delighted to have someone walk alongside me, especially when I got to the place of feeling especially frustrated, confused, or uncertain about myself. By the end of our time together today, I'm hoping to equip you to provide you, if you're a newer homeschool mom, with actionable steps to build confidence. Okay, so this is me. I'm Teresa, and I am someone that is passionate about supporting homeschool moms, as you can see on this channel, to really stop pushing through, because we need to meet our needs, build our confidence, manage our stress, set realistic expectations, and create a supportive community, which will help us to feel more confident, competent, and happier in our homeschool journey. So if you can't stay for very long, I want to give you a quick win, something that you can do, something practical, actionable that you can do in your regular days to help you move toward that confidence. The first thing is to journal. But here's what you want to specifically do in a journal and where you want to keep it. Keep it on your kitchen counter, beside the coffee maker, maybe in the morning, or as you're preparing dinner in the evening. And at the top of the journal, you want to write this one question: what is an education anyway? Because though it has been predefined for us, and many have determined this is the construct, this is where you go to get an education, this is how you do an education, these are the things that are included to create an education, and I'll tell you how old you are when you're finished the education. You actually, as a homeschool parent, get to choose how to engage all the different elements for your child's education. Because I did an early classical homeschooled approach. I did a little Latin, and I know that the root word for education is educato, which means to raise up. So I always ask parents to raise up. To raise up what? What is the purpose of raising someone up? And I like to see the concept of raising up as a specific person. We're raising up a specific person. We're not raising up 24 kids in a classroom. We're not raising up a few hundred people in a school. We're raising up a specific child. How could we participate with that child to to grow up in a way that would work for them so they could become who they were meant to be and do the unique things they were meant to do here? How could you help them raise up? So at the top of that journal, you want to write, what is an education anyway? And every day before you prep for dinner or every morning before you get your coffee, ask yourself that question and jot a few thoughts down. Over the course of the coming year, or perhaps just a couple months as you've laid it down there and it has not got entirely spoiled by coffee stains or kids' slime or all the other things that happen in the kitchen, you can just look back and say, okay, what do I really believe about what an education is? And how has it helped me to get a little clearer on what I'm doing here in my homeschool? So here's some common objections that I hear, reasons why confidence in the first homeschool year might seem challenging. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts, what the hardest part of being a homeschooler is, especially if you've already gone through your first year. What is the most challenging part of being a homeschool parent? One of the things that I've heard is that there's an overwhelm with the number of choices, and this is certainly true. As I look around all the curriculum opportunities, all the resources, all the extracurricular opportunities that kids have, there's loads of them. And as a new homeschool family, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and wonder, where am I even supposed to start? What routine should I use? What curriculum? Everybody's using different curriculum. Why are they using it all differently? How do I know what to choose? What's the right teaching style? Some people say not to be a teacher. Some other people say you should choose a certain method. Overwhelmed by choices is a common discussion point in the first homeschool year. The second thing is being uncertain in our planning. Without a clear plan or routine, parents can feel uncertain about how to structure their child's learning effectively, but also how to structure all the elements of their lives, which obviously leads to uncertainty. And then the third thing is comparing to others, especially in the world of social media, when we see all sorts of different approaches and beautiful rooms and different clever ideas that people are doing with their kids. How do we know that what they're doing isn't the perfect thing for our homeschool kids or for our family? How do we know that the things that we, perhaps if we took our kids from the school system and brought them home into a homeschool setting, how do we know that some of the things at school aren't the right thing for our child? This undermines our confidence. I would suggest to you that it's also very common to hear that people are afraid of failing, that they're going to fail their child. There's a pressure to succeed in educating their kids, and obviously that creates a failure, especially if parents perceive any feedback or they see setbacks or things aren't quite going as smoothly as they've heard other people have had as their first homeschool years. Perhaps they feel a lack of support. Perhaps. Often they feel a lack of support. Sometimes they feel isolated. This contributes to a lower sense of confidence, despite the fact that there are a lot more people in the world homeschooling right now. We all don't know each other. We don't know who's homeschooling. We go into it for different reasons. We have different worldviews, understanding of how to engage people. We have different ideas about many different things. So we don't feel connected or supported. And when we're not connected in community, it's easy to lose confidence. So I would be curious, for the first 5 different elements of being our first year challenges, first homeschool year challenges, I'm curious if you identify with any of those. If you would throw your thoughts in the comments, I'd appreciate that. How are you feeling so far? Does anything that I've said resonate? And are there any other things that you'd say, this was absolutely my challenge in my first year? I'd love to hear your thoughts too. Unrealistic expectations. That is the 6th common reason why people that are homeschooling in their first year don't feel confident. I have on my list of to-dos something to create a graphic to show what I've seen consistently with homeschool parents. And it's probably a parental thing as well. But since we're speaking specifically to homeschool families here, we develop these ideas for various reasons around what it is that we need to do for our children, the best practices per se for our kids. And we say, this is the right thing to do for my child. And I must do this thing if I am a good parent, or if I am meeting my child's needs, or if I am doing this homeschool thing right. And so when we do that, we set ourselves an expectation. And if we do not follow through with that expectation, we feel bad about ourselves. But typically what happens is we don't tell ourselves, maybe we should reevaluate or evaluate the expectation. Instead, we say, we didn't do the right thing. We might have to actually get a little more stringent and tight and more structured and create more routine or more to-dos on the list of expectations so that we can meet the unrealistic expectation. And so then we work harder and we feel more ashamed or more guilty by not having achieved that. And then we put more expectations on, and the cycle continues around and around because we were already being unrealistic right from the beginning. So we need to routinely evaluate our expectations, whether that's for yourself and how you show up, or for how your children engage in their homeschool. These unrealistic expectations lead to disappointment and self-doubt. Another thing, a seventh common reason why confidence in the first homeschool year might seem challenging, is that we don't give ourselves enough of a transition time or an adjustment period from a traditional schooled mindset to a homeschool mindset. Some will call this deschooling. If you haven't heard of that word, it really just means coming away from unhelpful schooled mindsets. What are they, you ask? Oh, I can give you loads of possible ideas, but some of them, especially entry level, like first year homeschool, deschool concepts, are things like we have to start at a specific time every year or every day. We have to complete a certain number of workbook pages, or you follow all the learning outcomes of the local, state, province, or country's expectations, or we have to make sure that they have weekly spelling tests, or we need to make sure that they are on grade or on level. There's so many possibilities around deschooling. That's actually why I introduced deschooling coaching, deschool group coaching somewhere around January, when people start to feel like their homeschool routines are definitely no longer working for them. But this is why it's so important to tell ourselves that we need an adjustment period to move from a conventional schooled approach to a new homeschool experience. So the key is to just give yourself space. Recognize that maybe 6 months, maybe 6 weeks, maybe 1 week or 1 month. There's no exact timeline that is effective, but give yourself enough space to say, hey, I wonder if we could just hang out together, be together, learn about learning, learn about what we're interested in, learn about how we like to learn. So another common reason why confidence in the first homeschool year might seem challenging is that we have an identity shift. Parents struggle sometimes with a new role. Everyone struggles with a new role when they're introduced to something new. We feel like imposters. And oftentimes I hear this concept of imposter syndrome, especially in the first or second year of homeschooling, conveyed as a feeling of, well, I'm not a teacher, and so I don't know that I can do this homeschool thing. Yesterday, I had the privilege of speaking with 3 different teachers over the course of the day, teachers turned homeschoolers. So there was 2 ladies, Angela and Maren, at the Homeschool Unrefined podcast, and I was interviewing Angela about her book, Thinking Differently about learning, and for my podcast, Homeschool Mama Self-Care. And we were talking about how we have an identity shift in that first year, about how the experience of being a teacher isn't the same as being a homeschool parent. So she and her, really one of her best friends, they co-host this podcast, they co-wrote this book, and her and I are talking about how it actually wasn't beneficial for her to go from an education program into homeschooling because they're so very different. Whether you're a teacher moving into your first homeschool year or not, we all have an identity shift. We all ask ourselves, are we equipped to do this new role as both being mom or parent and being an educator? The ninth common reason why confidence in the first homeschool year might seem challenging is, can you guess? Because I haven't mentioned this one yet, and I am sure it has been a scenario for you. It often is. It's external expectations from family members or friends or people from school, wherever. We're feeling the pressure of, I don't know that you should be doing that. And we question ourselves then. We believe for whatever reason that this is the right choice for our family right now, here for the reasons that we're choosing it. But then we say, I don't know, maybe everybody else around me is questioning it. So maybe I'm wrong. That can undermine our confidence, no question. Well, in my experience, I mean, I've been coaching for the last 5 years officially with various parents around the world, mostly from United States and Canada, but also in South Africa and Zimbabwe and Italy and Pakistan and a variety of other places around the world. And though we all are very different in the reasons we're choosing to homeschool, in the way we see the world, in so many different ways, including the fact that we're all homeschooling very different children, there are some common challenges. And those 9 challenges are ones that I hear on repeat. But there was one particular homeschool mom that I worked with. We'll call her Riley. This is not her real name, but a delightful mom of 2 younger kiddos. And she came to me suggesting that she wasn't quite sure if she wanted to choose homeschooling. Would she homeschool or would she maintain the other program that she participated in? She wanted to know for sure that she was making the right choice by her family. She also wanted to have a burnout prevention plan because her husband was concerned, as she was, but her husband was especially more concerned that this would be too much to take on this role, these responsibilities. It might be too much. So she wanted to create a burnout prevention plan as well. And she also wanted to have answers, to be clear on her answers when others had asked her the questions that many ask first-year homeschooler families, the frequently asked questions. So her and I went through a process of 12 sessions together where we unpacked all of these things. And she came out the other side confidently choosing how she was going to frame her family and how she was also going to approach her education for her 2 kiddos. A very wise mama indeed. In fact, I don't think I even heard about homeschooling at the stage that her parent or her kids were, or the ages of her kids. So it's pretty exciting, I think, for her family that she's as confident as she is and has declared herself as comfortable acknowledging that she can be both mom and teacher, because teachers are moms and moms are always teachers. But also, she got clear on what an education was anyway. She determined what the routine was that she wanted to create, and now she knows how she's going to go in to her first homeschool year. And I am very excited for her. So if you want to become a confident homeschool mom from year 1, I'm going to share with you these practical principles. Because if I could turn back time and tell myself or coach myself, these are the things, the 9 steps that I would speak to myself. Or you could think of it in this way. These are the 9 mistakes that often first-year homeschool moms do to decrease their confidence over the first year. Towards the end of this webinar, I'm going to share with you the one question that you want to ask yourself that will help clarify every step, every effort in your homeschool journey. So wait around for that. The one question that you want to ask yourself to clarify everything. These steps, these next 9 steps to become a confident homeschool mom from year one, are based on the journey of Sarah, the gal that I mentioned in the earlier part of this webinar. She's a new homeschool mom, and it comes from the lessons that she learned. So based on Sarah's story, which elements did you most identify with? I'll reintroduce the elements and ask you to put your thoughts in the comment section, a scale of 1 to 10. Add in the chat how much you identify with Sarah for each of the 9 elements. Even if you don't get to view this live, you're welcome to put it into the comment section. Make sure you mention a name, whether it's a real name or not, and why you chose to move into this homeschool life. The first element is equipping yourself with knowledge, which I think most homeschool parents do. Equip yourself with knowledge, like researching local homeschool regulations and legal requirements, exploring different homeschool methods and curriculum options, exploring different kinds of routines, learning more about child development and learning styles. I took 2 years to research, and I don't recommend that for anybody, but it was my focus for 2 years. While I still had a kiddo that was in kindergarten at the time, I had a younger kiddo who I was essentially homeschooling at home. I just didn't know to call it that. And I was pregnant with my 3rd baby. I don't think you need to research for 2 years. In fact, at this point in, AI and knowledge and all the thing that we have available on computers, I really don't think you need to research that long. Sometimes we need to just say, okay, I have enough knowledge. Now I need to get started. You will build confidence as you do the do. So the second thing that you can do is to create a support network. More important than ever, I think, especially over the last few years when I'm hearing from everyone that they've found it especially challenging. Their relationships or their communities have shifted, and so they feel more disconnected. And there's a lot of people that have moved, and some people that have had experiences of separation or divorce, and there's all sorts of different reasons why people have had different community shifts. But when we start something new, especially when it's something that is typically within the confines of our home or a minivan or on our own time, it's easy to become isolated. Not true isolation. We all know that when we homeschool, we have many opportunities to do many things, but to genuinely have connection with other people to support us along the way. So create a support network. You're welcome to join me in the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective every Friday. You can join a local homeschool co-op or support groups. You can find them actually on Facebook, real life, rub your shoulders against other people's shoulders kind of communities or networks. And even if the people aren't exactly the right person for you, at least it's a starting point where you get to connect with someone else that is beginning this journey alongside you. I've learned not to limit my support network to just homeschool families either, though. If there's friends and family or other people that would be supportive of you in your homeschool choice, include them. They don't have to know every element of your life. Michelle is a member of our Confident Homeschool Mom Collective, and she told me I think she's been in the group for about 7 or 8 months, and I'm delighted to hang out with her and get to know her more. She lives across the country, has a couple of boys that are a lot younger than my kids, obviously, because 3 of mine are grown, and my youngest is about to turn 16. And anyways, her and I get to have conversations regularly, and she says to me that this has been a game changer, joining the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective. I remember what it was like not feeling connected because I had just moved a province over. I had been researching for 2 years, but I didn't know a lot of people where I was at the time who were homeschooling, not people that I felt specially connected to. And then we moved a province, and then we decided to do a lot of traveling. And so I didn't know a lot of people. I remember consistently, though, I found out about a resource center in the community, and this lady had invited me to come hang out at her house and check out the resources every week. And so a couple of times a month, I would go over and, look at books, but also chat. And though she didn't see the world the same way I did, she didn't have the same children that I had. She didn't, have the same challenges that I had. She was many years ahead of me and really could cheerlead me on and say, you know what? It's going to work out. You're going to figure this out. And she'd give me ideas. It was like a cheerleader. She didn't even know she was a cheerleader. No pom-poms required, but she was my cheerleader. And I think that's what we need, especially when we're starting a new journey like homeschooling. So do you identify with that? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you identify with needing to create a supportive network? What about developing a flexible routine? This is usually one of the first things that parents ask me about is how do I create a routine that works? Well, the goal is to look at the different elements of your routine and say, do they really matter to you? Are they valuable to you? Because we have only so much time in the day. 24 hours in the day, and probably 6 to 8 at least, we need to be sleeping. And then you have the rest of the day to do the dishes, sweep the floor, do the garbages, fold the laundry, or do that once a week. But those things are on repeat. Also, hanging out with the kids, feeding the kids, clothing the kids, shuttling the kids back and forth to different, extracurricular activities, and then obviously the homeschool related things. And then self-care, because I'm going to remind you about that for sure. And time for yourself separate from your family. Also, building on the relationships that you already have, the ones that really matter to you. Also, I know this is a common theme for many people, introducing or including your work time or your creative time, whatever that is, however that takes place in your family. So these are all the things that matter to you. How do you include all of them? The way I approach it is to time block your schedule. There's a lot of conversation around balancing things. I don't think we can balance things. I actually don't believe in balance as a mom. You don't balance things. You are just present in the moment to the thing you are doing. And when you are fully present to whatever you're doing, then you shift when you need to shift to the next thing, but you feel more satisfied when you're being present to whatever it is you've decided to do. Of course, over the course of time, you begin to get clearer on what matters and what doesn't. And then you decrease the things that don't matter, increase the time for the things that do matter. This is a way to be more flexible in your homeschool routine, to really say to yourself, no one has it figured. No one has it completely aligned perfectly. You will never get the to-do list checked off. That's not part of life. We include things on our to-do list because they matter. And we have to accommodate for unexpected things that happen because they happen. They happen to everyone. And as homeschool parents, they happen to you while you have kids with you. In the beginning, when I began my homeschool journey, I wanted to create the perfect private homeschool. And so I included 3 read-alouds every day, one of them right after breakfast, one after lunch in the afternoon, and then one before bed. I had a school bell. Yes, it did. Still have it. It's a beautiful bell. Hadn't used it in the last solidly decade and a half because it took me 2 to 3 years to realize a school bell. Why was I doing that if I'd taken them out of school? I included a lot of Charlotte Mason's infusion into our homeschool, but I also included a lot of Susan Weisbauer's Well-Trained Mind, classical homeschool. And frankly, it was just all too much, even though it was very interesting. And I had an amazing education in those 3 years. I learned a lot, and I'm sure my kids did too, but it was just too much. Whereas I've heard from a lady named Belinda, I'll call her Belinda, and she doesn't have a routine at all. She would rather not have a routine. Thank you very much. And I have heard this a lot, not just from moms that are ADHD, but definitely I hear the sense of guilt that moms who have ADHD feel when they aren't able to maintain a routine. yet they're kind of happy with what they're doing. They just always hear about this routine thing and know it doesn't work for them. So Belinda's story is not to have a routine. She just wants to be busy doing things, interesting things. And then Helena's story, another homeschool mom, she has no routine at all, but she feels guilty because she's not doing anything. Helena's story can be sourced or rooted in different things, different reasons. So sometimes, as I remember hearing from one mom, she didn't want to acknowledge it. She said she was unschooling, but really she was in a depression, and she only understood that over the course of years. But sometimes it's really hard to maintain the routine because people are responding to whatever is the most urgent at the time. And it seems when you are with your kids all the time that urgency happens frequently. So if you're challenged by creating a routine or maintaining a routine that matters to you, you're always welcome to join me in the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective, or I'll mention more about the coaching opportunity at the end, but I'm most definitely going to include that as a discussion. So I'm curious if that is challenging for you on a scale of 1 to 10, how challenging incorporating a routine has been for you this last year. The fourth thing I want to share is that you want to clarify your core values. You will hear this repeatedly in social media. Why are you doing this homeschool thing? You need to know your why. And though it sounds cliche, it's effective, really, for everyone, all of life. We need to know why we're doing what we're doing. And if we don't have clarity on why we're doing what we're doing, we're just wasting time. We're going to fill in the blanks of our time with things that aren't so meaningful. We'll easily follow rabbit trails of other people's interests or compare ourselves to other people and ask ourselves, why aren't we doing what they're doing? Or when somebody criticizes us or makes us feel like what we're doing isn't good enough, then we'll say, why am I doing what I'm doing? Maybe it's not good enough. But if you're homeschooling, you get to decide why. If you're homeschooling, you need to decide why and ask yourself, are the daily activities you're choosing, your educational goals, your homeschool vision statement, your personal values, are they aligning with your practical activities each day? You want to align your homeschool approach with your values and your goals. Let me share with you a little bit about Grace. She wanted her boys to succeed. She and her husband were hella smart and scrappy, but she wasn't focused on values. She was focused on getting things done, being productive, not asking herself why she was doing what she was doing. She was checking things off her to-do list, and she was not happy doing it. She came to me because she wasn't happy with how she was doing things, and she wondered if I could help her get it all done. Straight up, I could tell her, I cannot help you get it all done, because when we put too many things on the to-do list, it just means we don't have enough time to do all the things. But if you feel unhappy doing the to-do list, then if you want to do the thing, ask yourself if the thing matters, if it brings value to you or to your kids. Because we want to create a to-live list, not a to-do list. Out of the why comes the how, not the other way around. When we know why we're doing what we're doing, we can lead in to the how. And then we will live from the to-live list, not the to-do list. So on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me, how much do you relate to Grace's story? So let's just take a breather right now, and I'm curious, how are you doing? Would you let me know? The fifth thing I want to share is to build self-awareness practices. Recognize and manage your own emotions. This is your goal as a homeschool parent, whether you're a first year or a 9th year or a 15th year, or even when you're graduated as a homeschool mom. You need to continue to build self-awareness practices so you can recognize and manage your emotions, especially as frustration and overwhelm. because every parent feels frustration and overwhelm. But when we are homeschooling, we have more opportunities. When we are homeschooling, we need to incorporate self-awareness practices, get to know our emotional climate, but also begin to learn self-compassion strategies. That means you learning to nurture you learning to take care of yourself. This is your burnout prevention strategy number one, is to learn how to take care of you. It is why I wrote my book, which I have here, Homeschool Mom: Self-Care, Nurturing the Nurturer. I wrote that book in my fruit orchard with the chickens pecking at my toes in 2018. I've been writing on my website for pretty much the entirety of my homeschool years. And I could see that there were distinctly 5 areas that I would consistently be writing about. And I understood that this one was the one that most resonated with moms, that we need to look after ourselves if we're going to look after our kids. And I mean, there's this one mom that shared, I wonder if I have it here, right at the very beginning. She had an opportunity to read my book. I don't have it there, but she had the opportunity to read my book before it was officially released. And she shared with me her story. And she said, this is totally real, as though I wouldn't believe her. But she said, I ended up in a mental health ward. And I think she had 7 kids at home. And she really felt burned out, but her family identified that it was more than burnout. There were mental health challenges that she wasn't addressing. And she said this book, or the words that I'd shared, were life-giving for her. To go back into her homeschool, she said, it gave her a sense of hope, and it didn't make everything magically go away, but it gave her a sense of hope that she could address her big emotions. She could address her mental health challenges and continue to homeschool. And whether we're in a scenario like she was in, or, experiencing the common things that homeschool parents experience, frankly, all parents experience frustration and overwhelm at various times, is something that every parent experiences. But when we begin to break down goals for ourselves in addressing our big emotions like frustration and overwhelm, and we begin to incorporate strategies to address those experiences, we not only feel a sense of accomplishment in ourselves, we recognize that this whole homeschool thing is an opportunity for our own growth, and that we gain so much in our homeschool journey. We learn so much beyond, relearning arithmetic and various things in science and history and whatever, but we're also learning about ourselves, and we're benefiting our relationships. We're benefiting our relationship with ourselves, and certainly we're benefiting our kids, teaching our kids these self-awareness practices, teaching our kids these compassion strategies. So building self-awareness practices is profoundly important. I'll share with you about Daphne's story too. Daphne had a complicated relationship with her family, as many do, but Daphne had an especially complicated one. She learned from an early age that she needed to dote on her mom, because that was the way she got attention from her mom. Her relationship with her mom was to be her mom's mom, or that's how she felt. She wasn't practiced in listening to herself. So she transferred that natural inclination to dote on her mother to her kids as she homeschooled. And she began to relate to her kids the same way she did when she was younger to her mom. She practiced not listening to her needs and her big emotions. Instead, she was trying to just listen and attempt to give everything to her kids. And though it's hard to identify when that's happening, you certainly cannot see what's happening from the outside looking in to a homeschool family's life or a mother's life. It is easier for us to identify if we are regularly building in self-awareness practices to say, you know what? I think I'm trying so hard to do everything for my kids and give everything to my children and never lose, never feel angry or frustrated or overwhelmed and not be, unavailable. We don't want to be unavailable for our kids. We have so much pressure on ourselves, and yet we're not actually listening to our own needs or our own emotions. We're not practiced in listening to ourselves. I'm curious if you relate to that. From a scale 1 to 10 again, would you share with me how much you relate to that? This is why building self-awareness practices is a necessity. The sixth thing I want to share is that we want to lean into child-inspired learning. Whether you are an unschooler or whether you are a classical homeschooler or whether you are not caring about any method whatsoever, our goal is to educate the child right in front of us, not homeschool a method. We're not here to raise up a method. We're here to raise up a child. Our goal is to pay attention to our kids' interests and incorporate them into our home education, or maybe we want to entirely focus on our kids' interests and lean into that. As I shared with one mom in the last few weeks, one of the strategies she could do to lean into child-inspired learning is to include a whiteboard in the kitchen or some sort of magnetic board on the fridge or something with paper on the island or the kitchen counters where kids could just write down, or you as a parent could quickly jot down something that the child asks or something they're curious about or something that you see they're interested in. Write it down and then incorporate a certain amount of time each week answering those questions, pursuing those interests, learning a little bit more about that thing you think your child might be interested in. This would probably be the least expensive, most interesting, and most engaged curriculum or resources you could use. This is a really great way for you to incorporate their interests and be really specific or individualized in how you approach their education. You can use a variety of resources and activities to keep learning engaging. One thing I've learned is spend less in the beginning, because our tendency, especially in the first year, is to buy a lot of stuff. And you should know I have an entire room of stuff, homeschool resources still, even though I'm graduated. And some of it I did not use. And I homeschooled 4 kids over somewhere between under 2 decades, but somewhere under 2 decades. And that's a lot of resources, mostly purchased in the first couple of years. And what happened with those resources is not just it became a space to sit on a bookshelf, but it was also something that reminded me, you haven't finished me. You need to complete this. You haven't used this. You're wasting it. You should use the thing. So when we buy the thing, we feel compelled to use the thing. So purchase sparingly. Use your library as your resource center. Recently, when I shared my most recent podcast episode, it was Why I Homeschool, My Unexpected Learning or My Unexpected Challenges and How I Overcame Them. I mentioned that I just lost my train of thought. I'll come back to it in a moment. Yep, I will. My resources, the resources that I chose, I wanted to choose them because I wanted to give my child a robust education. But what I really learned is that I didn't need to spend that much money on those things. What I needed to do is actually ask my children, who are they? What are they about? What do they like learning? And begin an education from that perspective. That was a challenge for me. It only took me about 3 or 4 years to realize that I needed to stop purchasing things because I didn't have enough time to use all the things. By the way, if you're local, let me know. I've got lots of things available still. Your goal is to adapt your approach based on what works best for each child and also for you. I think I've been told that actually the ideas of learning styles is a myth, that we don't necessarily always choose one learning style. sample a variety of them. We use them differently at different times. But I have noticed natural tendencies of each of my kids. And I'm sure you would also recognize maybe you have a child that really is kinesthetic. They just do not sit still for very long. They need to bounce on a bouncy ball while they're practicing their math facts, if that's what you do, or they just need to have loads of breaks. Some kids want to spend loads of times with other kids or the other kids in your home, or they want more, connection time with other kids outside of home. And then there's other kids that don't ever need to do that. And they're happy just hanging out in their room, doing their routine, keeping it simple. We're all very different in how we like to learn. Some of us are more visual, some of us are more auditory, some of us choose visual or auditory based on the time of day. I like reading. I really like reading. That's why I've got the Homeschool Mama book club. But I read a lot, but I don't just read physical books. I read loads of books on audio because I'm in the garden, because I'm driving somewhere, because I don't want to just listen to books or just read books that I can hold in my hand. And sometimes I want to read books that are on a computer for various reasons. So we want to do things at different times differently. It's important for us to identify that we have a natural tendency in the way we like to learn as parents. We like learning in a certain way. Some of us like traditional learning approaches, which makes it challenging when we have a child that doesn't. Or, and I've heard this in reverse, that we would rather have free for all and do whatever we feel like at any time of day. We are radical unschoolers, but we have a child that really wants a routine and wants curriculum. It's all the things. We're likely to have a couple of all the different kids, and also recognize that some seasons we want to do more traditional approaches and some seasons we don't. So just look at the child in front of you and say, who are you really? What do I see right now is how you like learning? What are your learning approaches? What are the things you're interested in? How can you incorporate them into your homeschool approach? I'll tell you about Sadie. She wanted her kids to have a dynamic education, which many of us do, but she used the word dynamic. She did all sorts of educational type activities. She was confident in creating a routine. She was eager to provide them with opportunities, various extracurricular activities, ones that are quite pricey actually, but she never felt that she was doing enough. Still, her rubric or her way of assessing what she was doing for determining if it was good enough was for her to compare her kids to school kids, the school kids that were doing academically very well. The school kids that were doing academically well that she was rubbing shoulders with in her neighborhood. She compared her school kid or her homeschool kids to those kids, but then she also compared them to the kids in the local forest school. And then sometimes she compared them to the kids online. What were other kids doing? Unless you are determining to raise all those children, comparing is irrelevant because you're not raising all those children. You are not their mother. So you can only and need only homeschool the children in front of you, which is a big enough task. Do you identify with that? Share with me in the comment section, 1 to 10, how much you relate to that concept. The seventh thing I want to share with you is that you can anticipate in this first year or the first 2 years that you will want or need to do some relational reordering. Because when everybody comes home to be with each other, the family dynamics shift, just like family dynamics shift when kids get a little bit older, or there's a separation, or when there is a family member that comes to live with you, or you move to a new town, or so many possible reasons why family dynamics or relational reordering happens. But recognize that in the first year or two, things can shift. Your goal, one of the biggest goals you want to create, is to build strong family relationships by first showing up for yourself. What do you need? What kind of personal space or time do you need to feel truly present with your kids? Your goal is to create healthy relationships that are supportive for you first. As they say, put the oxygen mask on to you first, And then you want to create a space for your kids. One mom shared with me, her name's Renee, she shared that she had a challenge with her teenager who didn't want to do a traditional approach to homeschooling. She felt, her mom felt that she needed to give her kiddo, her daughter, that one last push before she graduated, like she'd done with the older kids in her home. And yet this child really didn't want that. And there was a lot of frustration between her and this child. When she spent time with me, we went through, I think it was 12 sessions over the course of 3 months. And at the end of our time together, she said that was the most radical shift for her, was to recognize that she was pushing her child to be someone that she wasn't. And that maybe that child would go on to post-secondary school and do the things that she expected, like the other kids had done, but maybe she wouldn't. And she needed to learn to accept the child right in front of her. And she also learned that pushing actually only created more friction and trouble, and it didn't benefit her relationship with her child, and it didn't help her child learn more. So as a first year or second year homeschool mom, consider that there will be a relational reordering going on within your home. I'm curious if you relate, and if you do, would you let me know 1 to 10 in the comment section below? How much do you resonate with that experience of relational reordering? The 8th thing I want to share is you want to tackle unrealistic expectations head on, as I was referring to earlier. People joke about trying to address unrealistic expectations by lowering them, but then lowering them. No, lowering them some more. No, just a little bit more, keep lowering them. And it's true. It's hard to do though, because you don't really know what is unrealistic, what's actually going on that's unrealistic. So I think it's valuable to write it down, create a journal practice. You need to accept, as every mother does, every parent does, that you can't do everything. And you can't do everything perfectly. And you can't do everything everybody else is doing. You need to simply prioritize what matters. The goal is to say, how much time in a day do I really have, and how much can I really fill it with things that are meaningful? How do I incorporate some margins so I can be flexible or realistic in my intentions? And then know that some days are going to be challenging, and it's just going to have to be okay, because that's life. Some days really aren't going to be easy. But remember, as I said earlier, that we often create these unrealistic expectations, that we fail, then we feel ashamed, then we turn up the expectations because we need to tighten things up. They're unrealistic though, so we fail, then we feel more ashamed, then we turn up the expectations, and the cycle goes round and round until we finally call it and say, okay, I need to look at these expectations honestly. Because when we create realistic expectations, we achieve them and we become more realistic. We recognize that we can achieve them and also what actually is realistic. And we build confidence, and that circle goes round and round as well. And our goal is to make you feel confident in your homeschool mom life. And the 9th and final step is to create a growth mindset. This is an applicable concept, whether you are a homeschool parent or not, whether you're a first-year homeschooler or a 9th-year homeschooler. The goal is to accept growth. Embrace the challenges that you're experiencing right now as opportunities for growth and learning. It's easy for me to say that, and it's not always easy for me to accept it either. I don't like it. I sometimes kind of like it, because in the back of my head, I know that this is going to be a beneficial thing, but oftentimes I don't like it either. And we don't have to like growth, but we need to stay open and be willing to adjust to life as it really is and ask ourselves, what can we learn from this? Because just as I've learned from gardening, I have animals, I have goats and chickens, and I've learned that the compost that they produce, it can be left for a season and turned into a really nutritious soil for the garden and actually make things more fertile for the next year's garden. And that's very much the challenges we experience in life. They can be turned into compost that's nutritious for the rest of our story. And it builds confidence because then you say, I'm not afraid to address whatever the challenge is in front of me because I know that I can do something with it. I have a growth mindset that says, I'm here to learn something from this. What can I learn? That might be your greatest source of confidence in your homeschool mom journey, is to know that everything can work together for your growth and for your children's benefit. So what I've shared today barely scratches the surface of what I go into in depth in the Confident Homeschool Mom 101 group coaching program for first and second year homeschoolers. I've learned all these things the hard way over a couple of decades. You don't have to. You certainly can, and many do. They want to learn the hard way, or they think, you know what, I could just do this on my own, and you can. I know you can, because I've done that too. But if you follow these steps, these 9 steps, you will way more quickly navigate through your first and second year of homeschooling with greater confidence and competence and just a deeper sense of satisfaction, just like these other homeschool moms that I've shared throughout our time together. Renee shared, I don't have the details right here, but she shared, you can see it on the first page of my website. She shared that the relationship she had with her kiddo, a teenager, shifted dramatically because she learned to stop pushing and be realistic about the child in front of her. And then also Daphne shared as well that she gained a lot of confidence as she went into her first homeschool year to determine how she wanted to approach her kids, to create a burnout prevention plan so she would be able to do it over the long term, and also to address the frequently asked questions that she was frequently asked by friends and family about her homeschool choice. So if you want to join me in the group coaching program, I'll share a little bit more in a moment. But as promised at the very beginning, I said there is one question that you want to ask yourself that will help clarify every step, every effort in your homeschool journey. And it is this: why does any of this matter? I would encourage you to grab your journal and write down, why does this matter? Why does it matter that I intentionally, confidently homeschool my children? When you get clear on why what you're doing matters, then you can begin your confident homeschool journey. If you are interested in group coaching in the Confident Homeschool 101 group coaching program, I'd like to share a little bit more with you about this program. Thank you for joining me today. I am going to offer a free gift to those that are staying to the end. It's my wellness journal for homeschool moms. Presently, you find it in the Etsy shop or on my website, capturingthecharmlife.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts or questions about the webinar. Please let me know, because otherwise it is just me sitting here hanging out with you, but not knowing who you are. So imagine your homeschool journey as that well-tended garden with that lovely, rich compost. And every day you're carefully planting seeds. You're allowing those seeds of curiosity and, your kids following their rabbit trails to continue to be thrown into the seed, and you're nurturing it with personalized attention and a whole lot of love. And just as a gardener adjusts their watering routine or their light routine to help address the plant's needs, you begin to tailor your approach to each of your kids' unique learning styles and to who they are as people. And as time passes, you witness their growth, their strong roots of understanding or of curiosity, or they get a stronger sense of themselves. They discover their own creativities. They begin to bear fruit in whatever ways are meaningful for them to live lives that matter. Well, I think like a garden, homeschooling can thrive when you're tending it with intention, with dedication, using these 9 steps that I shared today. And you will see that your children will become confident, engaged purposeful individuals too, just as you will on your homeschool journey. And I'm excited for you because this is a really cool beginning. And that you have joined me today and had this conversation with me at the early parts of your journey is remarkable. Just profoundly remarkable. You're wise and you're engaged and you're intentional. And every step you make towards that will benefit both you and your kids. But imagine if you didn't address the challenges that you presently have in your homeschool and you continued to feel uncertain of yourself, experiencing this imposter syndrome that so many people speak about. What does that feel like? You're uncertain of yourself. And when people are asking you questions, you're like, oh, maybe they're right. And then you're having those hard homeschool days and you're asking yourself, why am I doing this thing? Everyone around me thinks this is nuts and this is hard. And maybe they can provide something better somewhere else. Without confidence, this homeschool mom journey can feel alone, lonely, frustrating, overwhelming, unsupported at the very least. It doesn't have to be. You can, if you so choose, move out of that lack of confidence and uncertainty, create a plan to address those things. It can be done, and you can enjoy the homeschool mom journey and the homeschool experience that you want. It has been a pleasure to hang out with you today, and I would love to hear what's been the most useful thing that I've shared with you today. If you're catching this live, put it in the comments section, and I'm going to have a conversation with you in a moment. You've already got the Zoom link. And also, if you're not catching this live or you haven't already registered, you're always welcome to do so. You can find the full find the full recording sometime after the live, and always connect with me in the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. But before we wrap up today, I want to invite you to take action today. Do something right now, because I know what the social media thing is like. I know what the online world is like. There's always someone saying something to you and asking you, do you want to do something about this? Do you want something else? Do you want to do something? Or do you want to purchase something? And on one hand, that can be annoying and it can be overwhelming in itself. But on the other hand, this is my request to you. If this resonated with you today, do something right now. Send me a message and say, I'd like to learn more about this coaching thing. And you're going to get a special discount if you sign up today. So just so you know, there's going to be a specific price that I'm going to give you, and it's only offered until the end of this week. So make sure you say, hey, I caught this live and I'd like to hear more about this Confident Homeschool 101 coaching program, just like Sadie did. I've mentioned all these moms throughout this time, and I got to say that I am so honored to walk alongside homeschool moms that are learning how to shed what's not working so they can show up authentically, confidently, and purposefully in their homeschool mom lives. It is truly a delight to walk alongside them. And yes, there is payment options. You can definitely chat with me about that. And okay, so we're going to go into our live conversation, and I'm going to share with you a little bit more about, well, first of all, anything you have as questions, also some of the frequently asked questions that people frequently get in their first or second homeschool mom years. But if you're curious, please, you're welcome to book a no obligation conversation with me if you'd like to consider one-on-one coaching. Or you can also click the link in the chat or in the comment section below to join our upcoming group coaching program. I'm looking forward to meeting you, and it has been a delight to spend time with you today. I wish you a wonderful first or second homeschool year. We'll talk to you soon.